Stop scrolling right now, because what I'm about to tell you will completely shatter the financial fairy tale you've been fed and reveal why the system is stacked against you from day one. Governments don't work for your freedom. They never have. They speak in soothing words: stability, growth, opportunity. But behind the polished speeches lies a centuries-old machine designed to drain the pockets of ordinary people while feeding the coffers of the powerful. And here's the kicker. The tricks they use are ancient, recycled, polished with new names, new charts, and modern jargon. But the goal is the same: move your wealth upward and keep you dependent, distracted, and comfortable in your ignorance. Let's start with the oldest, stealthiest weapon in their arsenal: inflation. Not the kind you hear about on the news, the kind that silently robs you every single day. Whenever a government spends more than it collects in taxes, it faces a choice: be honest, raise taxes openly and risk public outrage, or quietly slash the value of the currency. That's right. Every dollar, every coin, every paycheck slowly loses its purchasing power, while officials pretend nothing's happening. Rome mastered this centuries ago. In the 3rd century AD, Roman emperors needed money to pay soldiers and fund endless wars. Their solution? Debase the silver in the denarius. A coin that was nearly pure silver became mostly copper with a thin silver veneer. People didn't notice at first, until their savings evaporated, wages lagged, and prices soared. The empire had invented the silent tax, a blueprint the modern central banks use today. Then came the Middle Ages, where kings and queens perfected the art of coercion disguised as duty. Wealthy merchants in England, France, and Spain were routinely forced to loan money to the crown, refuse and face fines, confiscation, or worse. Promises of repayment were often empty, delayed, or made with currency that had already lost half its value. The palace flourished, armies marched, and the common people, well, they footed the bill indirectly while the elites grew richer. It was patriotism for the wealthy and financial punishment for everyone else. By the 1600s, the game evolved into something even slicker: institutionalized finance. Enter the Bank of England, 1694. Created not for your benefit, but to fund wars against France. Wealthy investors bought government bonds, earning safe, guaranteed interest. Who paid? Ordinary people, through taxes on salt, beer, and cloth. The system looked fair on paper, but in practice it was a seamless transfer of wealth from the masses to the top tier, a formula still alive today. Lend to the government, collect interest, work for the government, pay the interest. Safe money for the few, burden for the many. Fast forward to now, and the tricks are everywhere, dressed in spreadsheets, charts, and policy decisions. Deficit spending? Governments rack up mountains of debt, issue bonds, and claim it's for roads, schools, or hospitals. Meanwhile, a chunk disappears into defense contractors, corporate subsidies, and bailouts. When repayment comes due, they don't touch the fat cats. They tax, they inflate, they slash benefits. The public pays, the elites profit. Bailouts? Remember 2008. Banks gambled recklessly, bundled toxic mortgages, and almost triggered a global collapse. Who paid? You did? Who profited? The very banks that caused it. Privatized gains, socialized losses. The message is clear. You carry the weight, they reap the rewards. Even pensions and retirement funds are a masterclass in deception. Generations of workers pour money into government-managed systems. They trust that when they retire, the funds will be there. But governments often spend it immediately, leaving IOUs for future taxpayers. It's a generational Ponzi scheme disguised as security, until demographics shift, populations age, and suddenly the system can't sustain itself. Then comes the reform: reduced benefits, higher retirement ages, or payouts devalued by inflation. Your security, slowly eroded. Their control, strengthened. Every century, every empire, every modern state, the blueprint is the same. And the more you understand it, the more you see the patterns, the cracks, the levers of power. This is the hidden truth about money, politics, and control. And it's not theory, it's history, repeated with shocking precision against your wallet. Notice the rhythm yet? Every era, every empire, every government, different faces, different flags, same psychological playbook. The trick isn't force, it's perception. If they can control what you think something means, they never have to ask permission to do it. Inflation becomes growth. Mandatory financial compliance becomes patriotism. National debt transforms into investment. Bailouts are sold as stability. Pension cuts? Necessary reform. But beneath the branding lies the real engine. Wealth moves upward while the public believes it's progress. And the strategy works because most people never study economic history, never question financial architecture, never ask who benefits and who pays. By the time they realize the scam, the damage is already done. And in the modern era, the tricks aren't disappearing, they're evolving. Take quantitative easing, a phrase so sterile and boring it was probably engineered in a marketing lab. Before 2008, nobody outside high finance could define it. After the financial crisis, central banks printed trillions with a keystroke, buying government bonds and mortgage-backed securities to stabilize markets. And yes, it stabilized them for the people who owned the assets being inflated. Stocks skyrocketed, real estate surged, bond markets went parabolic. But ask yourself, who owned the majority of those assets? The top 10%, the top 1%, hedge funds, institutional investors. Not the single mom working 2 jobs, not the retiree on a fixed pension, not the kid buried under student loans. The public was told money was being created for the people, but the benefits poured into portfolios, not paychecks. Ordinary households got scraps while rising rent, rising food costs, and skyrocketing home prices crushed their purchasing power. Modern governments didn't just master financial manipulation, they refined it into an invisible tax system. And the most powerful version? Stealth taxation. Instead of raising income taxes, which would spark outrage, they taxed through fuel duties, sales taxes, excise fees, and the sharpest blade of all, inflation. When prices climb faster than wages, the gap is a wealth extraction pipeline. You're technically earning more, yet buying less. Your bank balance grows, while your buying power bleeds out. You're running faster on the treadmill, but the wall is closing in. And here's the sinister detail. Inflation quietly erases government debt. Your lost purchasing power becomes their financial relief. That's not an accident. That's architecture. And regulation? That's another rigged arena. On paper, regulation exists to protect the public. Guardrails against corporate abuse. But history exposes a darker truth. Regulatory capture. Rail companies shaped rail laws. Oil companies shaped drilling laws. Now tech giants and financial institutions write the script. It's the same philosophy the Peaky Blinders understood. Don't fight the system. Own the referee. While the public sees safety, insiders see advantage. Rules become moats. Compliance becomes a weapon. Competition dies. Profits thrive. Then there's war finance, one of the oldest financial seductions. In World War I and II, governments issued war bonds, wrapped in patriotism and fear. Citizens believed they were helping save the world, and in many ways they were. But those bonds also became government-guaranteed profit streams for wealthy investors, backed by future taxation. Fast forward to Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, trillions funded through debt issuance, funneling money to defense contractors, banks, and bondholders, while everyday workers finance the aftermath through decades of taxation. Wars end, the bill does not. And if all else fails, governments deploy their final shield, complexity. The tax code becomes a labyrinth. Regulations become encyclopedias. Financial instruments turn into puzzles. Even Wall Street analysts can't explain without a chalkboard and 3 cups of coffee. Complexity isn't inefficiency, it's camouflage. If the public can't understand the system, they can't fight it. Rome left clues, coins visibly diluted with copper. Today's version is invisible. Currency devaluation hidden in spreadsheets, acronyms, and billion-dollar budgets nobody reads. Why does this matter now? Because the tricks aren't slowing, they're accelerating. Inflation eats your savings like acid. Government debt explodes past numbers that once sounded impossible. Bailouts remain the default button when markets wobble. Central banks manipulate money supply with surgical precision. The result? A society working harder, earning more on paper, but owning less with every passing year. The wealthy consolidate. The middle class shrinks. The bottom fights for survival. History isn't repeating, it's looping. Rome debased silver. Monarchs demanded forced loans. Modern states inflate and borrow. Different toolkits, same outcome. And here's the brutal truth. Most people will nev this trap because they don't even know they're in one. They accept inflation as natural. They assume taxes are fixed reality. They celebrate bailouts as rescue missions. They trust messaging instead of studying mechanisms. That ignorance isn't accidental. It's strategic. Uninformed citizens are compliant citizens. Financial education is resistance. Economic knowledge is a weapon. Awareness is armor. So here's what you take with you. When governments announce stimulus, ask who benefits first. When inflation rises, remember, it's not an accident. It's a policy. When new regulations appear, ask who lobbied for them, who gains, who loses. Build assets, not just income. Own things that survive inflation, recession, and manipulation. Real estate, equities, commodities, businesses, intellectual property. And never ever assume a system built before you was designed to benefit you. Systems protect themselves, not the participants. History doesn't repeat. It warns. And if you ignore its warning, it won't just return. It will run you over. If this shifted the way you see money, power, and the system, then get ready, because this channel isn't just content. It's your escape route from financial illusion into financial freedom.